What do you want for breakfast, Mama? Want your rice and egg? Huh? Yeah. You want coffee? What? Um, yeah, it's gonna get really stock market. It's gonna go really down for Japan stocks. All right, let's talk about Hormuz. Let's talk about Hormuz. All right. Understanding what's going on. It's very severe. Welcome to the channel. I gotta make breakfast, coffee for the wife. Why is this not going? Let's put this on my Wi-Fi since we're in here in the kitchen. Go quicker. Let's see here. We're gonna go to Wi-Fi. Morning. So America's become pirates. The pirate class. Trump was pissed off because he wasn't getting any money from the straits. So he's like, why don't we do the same thing? Let's blockade the straits. All right, here we go. My wife doesn't like that voice. Report, the global hormone crisis of 2026. This report provides a forensic analysis of the geopolitical and following the blockade of the Strait of Hormuz. It reconstructs the timeline from the February 2026 kinetic escalation to the current state of industrial and diplomatic paralysis. Component 1, origin, escalation, and reality. 1, importance of the strait. For the 2026 crisis, the Strait of Hormuz was the world's most critical maritime and particular fault. Approximately 21 million barrels of oil per day, 20%, primarily from Qatar, passed through the 21-mile wide industrial feedstocks. Beyond crude, Strait is the exit point for naphtha, essential for Asian gain and LPG. Fertilizer connection, network security, not crisis. 2. The outbreak into war. The crisis shifted from chronic friction to acute conflict. February 28, 2026. The trigger, coordinated U.S.-Israeli air campaign, targeted Iranian nuclear facilities and military command centers, resulting in the death of Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei. The Iranian response, within hours, the IRGC declared the strait, quote, closed to hostile traffic, began seeding mines and deploying drone swarms. Traffic from 150 ships per day to fewer than 20 early March. Commercial vessels were stopped. B. Anchor Skylight and MKB VOM. 3. Collapse ramps. Humanitarian and financial channels were severed as leverage tools. Frozen funds. Iranian assets held in Qatar, previously earmarked for food subsidies, refrozen by the U.S. following the escalation. The Japan/Qatar angle. Japan attempted to broker a safe passage for food deal. The U.S. blocked the release, citing the need for total capitulation of Iran's nuclear program. 4. Trump factor. Pressure strategy. President Trump's return to the maximum pressure redefined the case. Blockade declaration. April 13th, 2026. Trump officially moved beyond sanctions to military blockade of Iranian ports, citing Operation Epic Fury as a means to force a, quote, grand bargain. Policy rhetoric. Trump characterized the move as maybe everything, simultaneously an energy play and a regime change tactic. This effectively signaled to allies that a return to the status quo was not reality now. Current state is a maritime exclusion zone, MEZ, enforced by the U.S. Fifth Fleet and countered by Iranian area denial tactics. legal insurance. War risk premiums have rendered commercial transit impossible for non-state and dark fleet transits have flowed by 70% due to active kinetic deterrent. Decisive turning points. February 28th, assassination of Khamenei, start of air war. March 19th, U.S. Navy begins active clearing operations. Iran responds to drone boats. April 11th, collapse of the Islamabad U.S. blockade of Iranian ports begins. What made this crisis structurally different? Unlike prior tanker wars, this was not a signaling exercise. It was a decapitation strike, followed by a total systemic disconnection from the global conflict grid. 2. Failed negotiation architecture. 1. Humanitarian financial track. Japan and Qatar attempted to decouple humanitarian aid from the war. Japan offered to oversee the goods for peace swap. The effort failed because the U.S. demanded Iran relinquish its remaining 60% enriched uranium before any funds were released. A precondition for a precondition, Iran viewed as a deterrent. 2. The Islamabad Channel. In early April 2026, Vice President J.B. Vance led a team to Pakistan for a 21-hour marathon. U.S. demanded zero enrichment and U.S.-led security management of the strait. Failure. Iran's led by active authorities refused to concede sovereignty over the waterway. Talks ended April 12th with the U.S. team departing abruptly. 3. By tractor points, Japan and South Korea desperate for de-escalation. Their just-in-time manufacturing is failing. China, publicly neutral, privately facilitating U.S. policies. The EU, critically split between supporting the U.S. and fearing a total industrial dark winter. Why diplomacy failed? The U.S. viewed the crisis as a moment of open. Iran viewed it as an existential threat. There was no middle ground. 3. System global impact. 3.1 Energy, shipping, and raw materials. Molecules is rewriting market physics. Naphtha and ethane. Asian steam crackers are shutting down. This is the hidden crisis. There is no plastic, no solvent, and no coating for global manufacturing. LNG. Qatar's inability to ship has sent European spot prices 400%. 3.2 Industrial cessation, manufacturing breakdown. We are seeing the first dry factories. Shortages of specialized plastic and solvents are halting lines in Germany and Japan. South Korean semiconductor firms are warning of feedstock exhaustion within 30 days. 3.3 Agriculture, 2027 hunger wave. While oil prices hit the headlines, urea and ammonia stock is more lethal. Timing. Blockade hit during the critical pre-planting window for several global regions. Impact. 28% surge in nitrogen fertilizer prices in 3 weeks. This ensures that even if the war ends tomorrow, food yields in 2027 will be significantly lower. 3.4 Country by country impact. Country. Main exposure. 30-day outlook. 90-day outlook. 90% oil. 20% LNG. Industrial slowdown. Total manufacturing cessation. China. Heavy crude / naphtha. Total manufacturing. Strategic reserve raw. 50 to 70% refinery output. India. Oil and fertilizer. Fuel ration. Social unrest. Agricultural failure. Germany. LNG chemical surcharges. Energy surcharges. Industrialization spike. Also, from failed diplomacy to systemic cessation. 1. What broke first? Diplomacy. Failure of the Islamabad converted the market scare into a structural reality. 2. Propaganda versus reality. The U.S. claims the strait is open to friendly traffic. The insurance reality is that it is closed to everyone. 3. Fragility revealed. The crisis proves the global economy cannot provide a just-in-time energy model when the world's primary valve is under a military. 2026 Strait of Hormuz crisis details. This video provides a summary of political and political that led to the current maritime exclusion zone in the initial strike. Next recommendation. Would you like to deep dive into subcomponent 3.1 to analyze the specific feedstock bottlenecks affecting the global electronics sector?
All right, so that was the overall. So we're going to deep dive into all this here. What's up, Al? What's up, guys? listening to having AI breaking down the nitty gritty, the actual, all the reality of what's going on with the whole thing. On there.
Master Reference Report, Global Hormuz Crisis of 2020.
And that's the
Report.
report on the next one. Making breakfast. How's everyone doing? Yeah, I mean, Trump now is becoming a pirate. He wants to blockade all the ships. He wants them to pay money to him. He wants to steal their stuff. Um, America has gone rogue. I mean, the only thing that needs to happen is if all the countries would just say enough's enough and bully America, shit would be over. You know, Japan threatens to sell the $1.2 trillion.
By Hormuz, choke point of the global machine. One, imagine the entire global economy. Smartphones in your pocket, on your fertilizer growing the wheat for your bread, and the fuel powering the factories in Shenzhen is connected by a single narrow thread. That thread is exactly 21 miles wide, the narrowest point. That is the Strait of Hormuz. We often talk about it in terms of or ideology. To understand the crisis, we have to stop and start looking. Hormuz is not the primary global industrial, and that doesn't down, it begins to seize the geographic reality. No room for error. The Strait of Hormuz connects the Persian Gulf and the Arabian Sea. The shipping lanes. While the strait is 21 miles wide, the actual navigations are only 2 miles wide, separated by a 2 mile border. These lanes are entirely within the territorial waters of Iran, and there is no high seas corridor here. Every ship passing through is within range of basic coastal artillery, let alone drone swarms or super. Beyond oil, the material dependency. Media often calls this an oil crisis, a dangerous oversimplification. Hormuz is a multi-commodity bottleneck. If it were just oil, you can draw from strategic reserves, but you cannot easily reserve the other building blocks of life. One, the energy foundation, crude oil, approximately 21 million barrels per day. This is the heavy lifting for refineries in India and China. LNG, liquefied natural gas. Qatar is the world's low-cost leader. Without Qatari LNG, power grids in Japan and South Korea face immediate rolling blackouts, and Europe's industrial heating costs quadruple. Two, manufacturing feed silent crisis. Naphtha and LPG. These are the precursors to global industry. Without both naphtha, Asian steam crackers, no means no auto parts and no consumer products. Aluminum, Gulf, UAE, Qatar, Saudi Arabia is a massive exporter of high-grade aluminum. Corruption hits the aerospace and EV sector instantly. Three, global food chain, fertilizer, urea and ammonia. Gulf is a titan of sulfur and nitrogen-based fertilizer. Chain reaction, disruption in Hormuz in the spring of 2026 doesn't just mean high gas prices today. It means a massive crop failure in 2027 for countries like Brazil and India that rely on these inputs. The rerouting myth. Why can't we just go around? While Saudi Arabia and the UAE have east-west pipelines and sea, their capacity is 20% of the total volume that moves through the strait. Infrastructure inertia. You cannot build 2,000 or a new LNG terminal in a week. It takes years, the insurance wall. Even if a ship could physically squeeze through a contested strait, no commercial insurer will. Once the war risk premiums exceed the value of the cargo, strait is accounted before it is closed. Why Asia and Europe are the first to break. The Asian sink, over 20% of oil moving through Hormuz, is market China, India, and Korea. Their just-in-time manufacturing has no basis for a 30-day disruption. European squeeze. Since the 2022 pivot away from Russian gas, Europe has become tethered to Qatari LNG. A Hormuz blockade is, for Europe, total energy systemic rupture. Hormuz matters because it's the world's most it concentrates the energy of the sun via ancient oil and the molecules of the earth via chemicals into a single point. When the 2026 crisis began, it wasn't just war, it was global industrial cardiac arrest. Next, established strait is the world's most dangerous fuse. In our next segment, we look at who started the war and how did a series of diplomatic failures lead to the we see today. Would you like to move directly into the next segment? Who started the war?
So this is all Trump's doing, right? This isn't going to get fixed. Understand? Even if we walked away tomorrow, the prices, everything else, all manufacturing is tied. Japan, for example, Japan is ceasing major operations. They're shutting down their plastic production in Japan. You understand? Japan stock market is in a free fall, pretty much. Um, and this is going to impact everything. You know, let's see here. Let's send this to the right spot. So, understanding who started the war. Understand this is all MAGA doing. This is all Trump doing. You understand? Trump can't win the elections, right? Trump can't win the elections in November. He's going to lose the Senate. He's going to lose the House. He can't win. His popularity is so far down. His gerrymandering in Texas it has made it that they're going to lose Texas. They can't even win Texas. So he needs a global war, and this is what they're trying to do is create World War III in order for him to stay in power, to be a wartime president. He is putting the entire world. If he's going to lose, if he's going to go down, if he's going to all these individuals, he's going to take the world out with him. That's what we're seeing right now. That's what we're.
The Hormuz crisis started. The path to Operation Epic Fury and the Great Blockade. The hook. Lay the map. Morning of February 28th, 2026. The digital boards at the world's major energy exchanges didn't just show a price spike. They went dark. For years, the world had treated the Strait of Hormuz threat as a rhetorical ghost. The card Iran played, but never quite threw on the table. That morning, the ghost became a monster. The crisis didn't start with a single ship or a single mine. It started with a coordinated lightning strike that aimed to end a regime and instead ignited a global system. Deeper causes. 2024 2025 preconditions. Before the first bomb fell, maximum pressure 2.0 campaign had already reached the boiling point. The enrichment threshold, late 2025, intelligence confirmed Iran possessed over 450 kilograms of 60% enriched uranium. Negotiators like Steve Witkoff warned that breakout time had shrunk to 7 days. The negotiation pivot. The administration offered a grand bargain, free nuclear fuel in exchange for total zero enrichment. Iran, viewing this as a surrender of sovereignty, doubled down on its practice of resistant proxies. Economic desperation. The Shadow Fleet was Iran's only lifeline. When the U.S. began aggressive physical interdictions of these tankers in early 2026, the diplomatic trigger.
Oh well, you got
The transition meeting in Tehran.
by Al. Sorry about that, guys. my Wi-Fi going in and out. Let me kill my Wi-Fi to keep me on. So I'm guaranteed to stay connected on it. As my stupid Wi-Fi, I switch and then the server can't switch over to it. Get my eye work in here. Let's do my eye exercise. I haven't done my eyes in a while. You can actually feel the eye muscles. I do it enough now that I can actually feel my muscles, my eye muscles, like working on it. No, I'm working my retina, the muscles around my retina. I'm not faking out anything, Crystal. You're looking in and then you're pulling back slowly. There, it creates a tunneling, right? You see this kind of tunnel. There's a word for it. I can't remember what the word is. But you can follow the edge of the tunnel all the way till you're like looking at all the patterns here, and then you follow the edge of the tunnel all the way back into the sun, and you're staring as far away as you can, like you're trying to focus in on the sun, and back and forth. Right now, obviously with your eyes closed. Don't do it with your eyes open, unless you want to lose your eyesight, and don't do it for a long time. You just do it for. I do it for 3 rotations. I go in, I come out, I come in, I go out. That's it. You know. Um, I need a charger. Mm, where are my chargers? Weird that I don't have my chargers aren't in here. To plug it in upstairs. All right. I know that was funny when he did it. When he let me get my water. We gotta get my. I should have got my both my waters. I got water the other day. I get spring water from the mountains. All right, this can go in here. All right. This is gonna go up to my room. I have a. All right. Yeah, during the eclipse. And now if he was like staring at the sun. These sausages. Mama, you ate all of Mikey's sausages. She only left one sausage. Well, man. Yes. Yes. God, that's heavy. And all right. Whew. Anyway. All the all right.
All right. All right, let's see here. So we're talking about Hormuz. I really wanted to do a video where we destruction. President Trump's strategy throughout the escalation was a mix of hyper escalation and transactional bluffing. The toll proposition. In a move that stunned allies, Trump briefly hinted that the U.S. might accept an Iranian toll on ships, $1 million plus per transit, if the U.S. received a cut of the revenue. The reversal. When the Islamabad talks collapsed, Trump pivoted back to total force, declaring a full maritime blockade on April 13th. The strategic shift. Unlike the first term's sanctions only, this was kinetic enforcement. Trump effectively used the blockade to tell the world, you can have the strait back when I have a new deal. Chronological summary of turning points. Date. Event. Consequence. February 28th. Operation Epic Fury. Khamenei killed. Iran closes the strait. March 1st. Tanker strikes. Maersk and Hapag-Lloyd suspend all Gulf transits. March 19th. Naval clearing ops. Crisis moves from blockade to active sea battle. April 11th. Islamabad collapse. Final diplomatic off-ramp fails. April 13th. U.S. counter-blockade. The strait is officially a dead zone for global commerce. The verdict. Why it escalated. The conflict escalated because both sides were playing for different end states. The U.S. sought structural change, nuclear zero. Iran's remnants sought survival through chaos. There was no middle ground because the very thing they were fighting over, the strait, was the only leverage either side had left. Up next, we've seen the bombs and the blockades, but why didn't the money fix it? In our next talk, we'll dive into the failed negotiation architecture, focusing on how humanitarian funds in Japan and Qatar became a cage rather than a key. The 2026 Strait of Hormuz crisis explained. This video provides a tactical breakdown of the intelligence and military operations that initiated the 2026 crisis, specifically the precision strikes of Operation Epic Fury. YouTube video views will be stored in your YouTube history, and your data will be stored and used by YouTube according to its terms of service. We need to.
Uh, why is this not playing? Uh, Sorry, guys. I got distracted. What's the next prompt? Prompt 2, prompt 3. Get all these prompts in here. I'm working with my digital twin on
No, I find. I Hi, we're in Japan. Are you Santiago? You're hi. We're in Japan. Where are you, Santiago? Sorry, looks I'm coding. I get caught up in the code. I'm meditating. When you see me caught up, I'm meditating. Okay, never mind. Talk. How humanitarian channels were cut off. The weaponization of the off ramp, the hook, the ghost of the goods for peace deal. In the early days of March 2026, there was a brief window where the world thought the Hormuz crisis could be bought down. The plan was simple: use the billions of dollars in frozen Iranian assets sitting in foreign banks to pay for food, medicine, and de escalation. It was a pressure valve designed to keep the civilian population from starving, while the generals argued. Instead, that valve was welded shut. This is the story of how humanitarian aid ceased to be a gesture of mercy and became a structural component of the blockade. The mechanism, the $6 billion carrot. To understand why the channels failed, we have to look at the Qatar-Japan axis, the Qatar funds. Following the 2023-2024 agreements, roughly $6 billion of Iranian oil revenue was held in restricted accounts in Doha. Legally, this money was earmarked for non-sanctioned goods, specifically medical supplies and agricultural inputs. The Japanese buffer, Japan, fearing the total collapse of its petrochemical supply chain, offered to act as the verified. They would manage the escrow, ensuring that for every dollar released, a physical shipment of medicine or grain entered an Iranian port under Japanese supervision. The policy, coercive philanthropy. The breakdown occurred because the Trump administration shifted the goalposts from containment to exhaustion. The U.S. veto. On March 12, 2026, the U.S. Treasury Department issued a final rule notice. It redefined humanitarian use to exclude any transaction involving Iranian ports currently used by the IRGC for drone launches. Since the IRGC had militarized every major port to enforce the closure of the strait, the U.S. effectively made it illegal to send aid anywhere. The justification: publicly, the White House claimed they were preventing the diversion of funds to terrorism. Privately, the strategy was strategic deprivation. The belief that if the Iranian domestic situation became dire enough, the decentralized military command would be forced to reopen the strait to avoid a total internal revolution. The actors, WHO blocked the exit, the facilitators, Qatar and Japan. They argued that cut-off medicine would only radicalize the remaining Iranian leadership. They viewed the funds as a bridge to a ceasefire. The hardliners, the US and Israel, they viewed the funds as for punishment. Blocking the release, they turned the frozen money into a hostage. The double lock. When Japan tried to bypass the US by using yen-denominated credits, the US threatened secondary sanctions on the Bank of Japan, a move that effectively shattered G7 financial unity for the first time in decades. Why this matters diplomatically? The collapse of the humanitarian had three fatal consequences. 1. Loss of neutrality. Countries usually act as the postman of the Gulf, realized they could no longer protect their own financial sovereignty from U.S. policy. 2. Hardening of the IRGC. Within Iran, the pragmatists who wanted to negotiate were silenced. The dead-hand military commanders used the aid cutoff as proof that the U.S. intended the total destruction of the Iranian people. 3. The end of the off-ramp. Once the money was off the table, the only thing left to talk about was bullets and blockades. The verdict. Medicine as a munition. By late March, the humanitarian channel was a dead letter. The international community realized that the US wasn't just trying to stop a war, it was trying to reshape the Middle East by allowing the clock to run out on Iran's internal stability. Up next, with the humanitarian bridge burned, the world made one final, desperate attempt talk. In our next segment, we go inside the room in Islamabad, where the US and the remnants of the Iranian leadership met for the last time, and why those talks were doomed before they even began. Would you like to proceed to the deep dive on the Islamabad/Pakistan negotiation collapse?
All right. I'm loading this up, then we'll have to come. Hey Seth, how you doing? I'm here coding. This is what I'm doing. So this is my LinkedIn, just so you know what I'm working on. So this is 0102. Um, actually, I need to update this picture here. Edit document. I need to change this picture. Close that out. Upload this. Go to my pictures. There it is. Is that the one I want? All right. ROC. There you go. Boom. That cool. So that's 0102. This is the old capitalism, right? And what we're seeing right now is ROC, return on compute, smashing return on investment. And there's decentralizes. This is domain autonomous agents. These are basically AI, right? That's the AI coming out of the system. That's the new intelligence coming out, whacking the the old. What do you guys think of that? Isn't that the coolest picture? 0102. A lot of little holes in there. All right, decentralized autonomous ecosystems. That's what I'm building. Decentralized autonomous ecosystems. No more corporations. No more shareholders. No more no more fiat. No more of all the fucking bullshit. I'm building out a framework that I came up with back in 2010 when Bitcoin came about, and then in 2011, Occupy Wall Street happened, and I made this realization that our entire economic model is not systemically flawed, endemically. Anyone know what the difference between endemic versus systemic? Anyone know what the difference between the two is? Anyone in here? You all fucking buggered off. Dude, the moment I fucking talk to you, it's like you all leave. It's like, oh, this guy's interesting. What's he doing? Is he, is he, I know what it is. People in here going, oh, is he gooning? Oh, he looks like he's gooning. He's gooning. And then, oh, shit. It's about ROI and ROC and shit like that. That's too funny. All right, back to the fucking auto thing. I'm going to go back to working since you guys don't want to engage in a conversation. Let me know if you want to engage in a conversation. I'll come right back.
Um, Let's see where we're at here. Did it play it? Crypto, you guys back? Why is this shit not working? The village idiot. Dude. Oh my god, he's gonna like take oil. He wants oil to be higher. He's so threats, bluff, and blockade politics. There you go. Maximum pressure as a naval reality, the hook, maybe everything. On April 13th, 2026, a reporter asked President Trump if his new naval blockade was intended to lower energy prices or to force Iran back to the negotiating table. His answer was three words that define the current era: maybe everything. Both. This wasn't just a policy statement, it was the ultimate expression of the Trump doctrine in 2026. While the world looked for a narrow off ramp, Trump opted for a total systemic wall. To understand the blockade, you have to understand the man who ordered it. a leader who views global trade not as a shared utility, but as a series of leverage points to be squeezed. The Trump Doctrine 2.0, coercion as default. By early 2026, the administration had abandoned the traditional sanctions first approach of the first term. The zero enrichment red line, Trump's public posture was binary. In his view, the previous administration had left too much room for Iran to breathe. His 2026 strategy was built on material finality, the total destruction of nuclear infrastructure, Operation Epic Fury, followed by a total economic freeze. Intimidation or strategy? Critics argue the administration escalated faster than diplomacy could absorb. By the time the Islamabad talks began, Trump had already publicly threatened to demolish Iran's civilian power plants for fun, or until the nation could never be built back. This rhetoric effectively turned the negotiation table into a surrender ceremony. The public messaging versus material reality. Trump's truth social diplomacy created a chaotic feedback loop for global markets. The bluff. Throughout March, Trump suggested the U.S. might actually partner with Iran to jointly charge tolls for passage through the strait. This was seen by allies as a bizarre bluff, or a transactional distraction. The hammer, when Iran didn't bite, the pivot was immediate. On April 13th, he declared a full maritime blockade of Iranian ports. The disconnect. While Trump claimed the U.S. Navy was protecting freedom of navigation, the reality was the opposite. The blockade made the strait a kinetic dead zone, scaring off commercial vessels more effectively than any Iranian mine ever could. The Allied fracture. Interpretation and fear. U.S. allies, Japan, South Korea, and the EU, found themselves in a geopolitical vice. The transactional ally problem. Trump's rhetoric signaled that U.S. protection was not a treaty obligation, but a commodity. He hinted that if Asian nations wanted the strait reopened, they needed to pay protection fees or back his trade war with China. The force majeure. By ordering a blockade rather than a freedom of navigation escort, Trump bypassed the traditional maritime laws his allies relied on. This led to what diplomats call strategic de-alignment, as Japan and Germany began looking for independent workarounds with Beijing to secure their energy futures. Did it work? Leverage versus collapse. The debate of 2026 is whether Trump's posture produced genuine leverage or simply accelerated a collapse. Leverage argument. Proponents say Iran's economy is in a death spiral, and that only this level of raw force could have stopped their nuclear breakout. Collapse argument. Critics point to the fact that the strait is now functionally closed to everyone. The bluff was called, and now the global economy is paying the price for a negotiation that lacked a middle ground. The verdict. Improvisational totality. Trump didn't follow a State Department white paper. No. He followed a gut instinct for maximum friction. He believed that by making the situation too painful for the world to ignore, he could force a global realignment in America's favor. Instead, he triggered a systemic cessation that neither side knows how to end. Up next, the diplomats have failed, and the president has given the order. In our next talk, we look at the physical reality on the water, the blockade reality. What does it actually look like when the world's most powerful navy tries to stop the world's most important trade route? Would you like to proceed to the deep dive on the current blockade reality?
It's insane. It's insane. I mean, it's like he went from it like a few boats, now it's completely shut down. And he's just going to grift the market. All he's going to do is grift the market. That's all he's going to do is make money off the market. Did you see the trades? This guy has made 16 trades every time directly right before Trump's announcement. There's one guy who is just 16 times, 16 wins, massive trades, right? Massive trades. Some insider is completely just grifting. They don't care, dude. They're so ballsy. I know these kinds of people, you know? They're like, fuck it. I don't care. Put me in jail. I'm going to make the fucking $160 million. Fuck everyone else. You know, the Trump's going to give me a pardon. I'll get a pardon. Like, I care. You know, I hope they get the guy on state fucking charges, dude. I hope they find that moron and they go for him, put him in jail forever. Right? He's doing a Bernie Madoff. Oh, look.
The blockade reality. The mechanics of global paralysis, the hook, the silent strait. If you look at satellite imagery of the Strait of Hormuz today, you won't see a literal wall of ships stretching from coast to coast. In the age of modern warfare, a blockade doesn't look like a picket line of frigates. It looks like an empty ocean. The blockade reality of 2026 is a state of functional closure. It is the moment where the risk of moving a cargo becomes higher than the value of the cargo itself.
Let's go, Ron Drone.
In this segment, we peel back the military terminology to see how a few drones and a lot of lawyers effectively shut down the world. 1. The Maritime Exclusion Zone, MEZ. Following the April 13th declaration, the U.S. and its partners established what is formally known as a Maritime Exclusion Zone. The definition: any vessel, commercial or military, entering the designated coordinates without specific U.S. Navy clearance is categorized as a hostile intent contact. The enforcement. This is handled by the Combined Task Force 150. It involves active interdiction. This isn't just a radio warning. It involves boarding parties, drone shadowing, and, in several cases over the last week, warning shots across the bows of Dark Fleet tankers. 2. Formal versus. De facto. The two-sided choke. The current situation is unique because it is a double blockade. The U.S. formal blockade, aimed at stopping all Iranian exports and imports to collapse their remaining industrial base. The Iranian informal blockade, using area denial, mines and swarms. Iran has made the shipping lanes a lottery of destruction for any vessel, regardless of its destination. The result: even if the U.S. allows a Japanese tanker to pass, Iran may sink it to prove the U.S. cannot protect the strait. 3. The insurance freeze. The true killer of trade. The most powerful weapon in this crisis isn't a missile, it's a war risk premium. The calculation. Typically, shipping insurance is a fraction of a percent of a ship's value. Once the strait was declared a war zone and the blockade was enforced, those premiums jumped to 15 to 20% of the hull value per transit. The result: for a $100 million LNG carrier, you might have to pay $20 million just for the insurance to move it once. At that point, the market closes the strait long before the Navy has to fire a shot. Most commercial fleets, Maersk, Costco, MSC, have simply hit pause indefinitely. 4. Physical versus functional closure. There is a common misunderstanding that a blockade means no ships can physically move. Physical closure would require sinking every ship. Functional closure. This is what we have now. It occurs when logistical certainty disappears. Modern manufacturing relies on just-in-time delivery. If a Samsung factory in Korea doesn't know its snap shipment will arrive in 4 days or 40 days, the factory must shut down to prevent equipment damage. The reality of the strait is functionally closed because the global supply chain cannot handle the variable of total loss. 5. The shipping paralysis. Beyond rerouting, we are now seeing the Great Divergence. The Cape of Good Hope. 98% of traffic that used to transit the Suez and the Gulf is now diverting around the southern tip of Africa. The math of misery. This adds 12 to 15 days to a voyage. No other way out. Those ships are simply idling, creating a ghost fleet that is sucking capacity out of the rest of the world's shipping lanes. The verdict: a systemic lockdown. The blockade reality of 2026 is that the Strait of Hormuz has become a commercial vacuum. The legal and military risks have created a barrier that no amount of profit can justify crossing. We aren't just looking at expensive shipping. We are looking at the cessation of the world's most vital industrial flows. Up next, now that we understand how the gates were shut, we have to look at what we dive into the commodities and logistics shock. To the deep dive on component 3.1, shipping and raw material shock.
All right, we're on the road. All right, we're on the road, doofus. Sorry, guys. All right. We're deep diving into the reality of what's happening in the Hormuz. So bear with me. I'm loading up everything. Now I'm in the car. We'll get things moving a little bit, get a little music going and other stuff. But I'm actually loading up, having the AI deep dive in very specific things on it. Good to see you, sir. Good to see you. I love this time of Japan. Enjoy the view. Japan becomes basically a land of lakes. All right. This is my favorite time of year in Japan. All the rice fields get flooded. Right. You can see them all. All these fields are going to be flooded. This guy. What the fuck is this guy doing? Get the fuck out of my way. They're added sand because at a boggy spot. This farmer here. Ohio. They're flooded. He gave me a little. He gave look all the things. Well, see all the fields in the distance are all going to get flooded. It's all going to be lakes here in a few days. Everything is going to be lakes. They're flooding all the fields on this here, right? And the tractors are going to do one more run on them. Oh, look, the wind turbines are going. Yeah. Good morning. Welcome to the show. I'm your host. I don't know why I'm not getting any sound out of this here. Let me start this up again. Should have sound. Oh my God, he's really fucking things up now. I mean, he's actually physically closed it down and threatening to basically send U.S. warships on allies. So American allies who come out of there, who negotiate their fuck because they need their fucking oil, he doesn't give a fuck. He's being a fucking bully. I'm telling you, the only thing that we can really do is the whole world needs to turn on America. I mean, the whole fucking world. Japan needs to make an announcement. We are starting to sell off the $1.2 trillion. If Trump does not lift the fucking blockade, we're going to start selling it off. You're going to want to burn you want to burn your dollar? You want to burn Wall Street? Go ahead, because you're fucking burning Japan, right? Our Japan industry is shutting down because of Trump now. Hear me, listen. Japan industry is physically shutting down. They need to take a strong fucking arm. They need to say, fuck Wall Street, fuck the dollar, fuck MAGA, right? And just put the world in a massive depression. That's what needs to happen. Right? We'll survive. Dude, look what Japan did during when they had the largest tsunami. America could never have gotten through this shit, dude. Japan will get through this shit, but America won't. America is going to fucking crash and burn. You know, there is no fucking getting over this shit for America. Americans are gonna hurt. That's why I say get your passport, move to Japan. Best place in the world to be is Japan. Best place to be is in Japan. Right? Of all the nations, look what they did. You dropped 2 fucking nuclear bombs on Japan, and they became the largest fucking economy. They're the 3rd largest economy on the planet. Where's that? Where are the street demonstrations? You know, I mean, I'm an American. I hate bringing hardship to America, but guess what? The only way the American people are gonna learn, especially the dumb fuck MAGA are gonna learn, is when they fucking feel it. When they lose their homes, when they lose their cars, and they lose fucking everything, because the whole economy fucking shuts down on their head because of a moron. They put in a pedo that's using the Epstein files to control people.
Petrochemicals, naphtha, and factory shutdowns. From molecules to machines, the great industrial stoppage. The hook. The silent, invisible crash. If oil is the blood of the global economy, then petrochemicals are its skeleton. We are obsessed with the price at the pump, but the true nightmare of the 2026 Hormuz crisis isn't just expensive gas. It's the disappearance of the invisible molecules that hold our world together. Today, factories from Nagoya to Seoul are going dry. Not because they ran out of power, but because they ran out of the chemicals required to glue, coat, mold, and insulate. When the strait closed, it didn't just stop tankers, it severed the primary nervous system of global manufacturing, the feedstock to factory chain. To understand why your next car or smartphone is currently indefinitely delayed, you have to trace the journey of a single molecule through the strait. 1. The source: naphtha, ethane, and methanol. Naphtha, the Swiss Army knife of chemicals. Derived from crude, it is the primary feedstock for Asian plastics. The Middle East provides over 70% of Japan's naphtha and 50% of South Korea's ethane/ethylene, the building block for polyethylene, plastic bags, bottles, pipes. Methanol, essential for resins and coatings. 1/3 of the world's seaborne methanol passes through Hormuz. 2. The transition, the steam cracker. In East Asia, massive industrial plants called steam crackers take that naphtha and break it into basic chemicals. The vulnerability. These plants are designed for continuous, high-volume flow. They cannot simply turn down the volume. If the feedstock drops below a certain threshold, the plant must undergo a hard shutdown, which can take weeks to restart safely. 3. The destination, the factory floor. Once the cracker stops, the supply of resins, solvents, and polymers vanishes. Without these, the assembly lines for electronics, autos, and aerospace hit a wall. Why factories go dry, the shutdown vulnerability. In the 2026 crisis, we aren't seeing a quote slowdown, we are seeing cessation. The auto and EV crisis. Modern cars are roughly 50% plastic by volume. EV battery casings, dashboards, and wire insulation all rely on polymers derived from Gulf ethane. High-performance coatings for aerospace and EV components require specialized solvents that have no immediate substitutes. Construction materials, PVC pipes, insulation, and high-strength resins for infrastructure projects have seen a total supply collapse. The zero buffer reality. Because these chemicals are volatile or expensive to store, most factories operate on a 7 to 14-day inventory. When the 30-day blockade mark was hit, the buffer was gone. The factories went dry, the force majeure wave. As of late March 2026, we have witnessed a legal tsunami. What it is: a force majeure declaration is a legal act of God clause that allows a company to break a contract without penalty because of unforeseeable circumstances. The domino effect. First, the producers in the Gulf, like Qatar Energy and Bapco, declared it because they couldn't ship. Then, the Asian chemical giants, like Aster Chemicals in Singapore, declared it because they had no feedstock. Finally, the end users, automakers, and tech firms declared it because they couldn't deliver finished goods. The result? Global trade law is currently in a state of suspended animation. Business certainty has vanished. The verdict: structural versus cyclical. This is not a temporary price spike. This is a structural rupture. Even if the blockade ended tomorrow, the global manufacturing system would take 6 to 9 months to recalibrate its dry supply chains. For sectors like the EV and aerospace industries, the damage to 2026 production targets is already irreversible. Up next, we've seen the factories stop. Now we must look at a crisis that is even more fundamental. to human survival. In our next segment, we look at the fertilizer and food security shock, how the closure of the Strait of Hormuz is.
All right, this is where it's really going to hit America. This is where it's really you're gonna feel it, MAGA. This is where you're gonna feel it when you realize next year, when all the food is gonna keep going up, you're gonna see another 20, 30, 40% increase on the cost of food. You already can't afford food. It's gonna keep going up, all right, because of Trump. Food prices going up all because of this fucking idiot. It's insane. Absolutely insane. Absolutely insane. It is a grift. Yeah, he's. They don't give a fuck. They're dumb. You got a bunch of dumb fucks. They don't realize how everything is connected, and then they're gonna go just like they did. Oh, we didn't know. We didn't know it was connected. We didn't know. We didn't know about the fertilizer. We thought it was just gas. Didn't know about fertilizer. Oh shit. Wow, they got a whole parking lot thing back here. Mikey, Tommy could drive back here. You could drive back here. You want to start learning to drive, Mikey, back there? Start driving, Mikey. Let's get you driving. Right, our little area back there. All right. What do you need? Lunch or something?
Fertilizer, agriculture, and food inflation. The delayed fuse, why the blockade, is a 2027 hunger crisis. The hook, eating the seed corn. There is an old saying in geopolitics. Every society is 3 missed meals away from revolution. When we look at the Strait of Hormuz, we usually see oil tankers. But if you look closer, you see the caloric foundation of the planet. The Gulf is not just a gas station, it is a global nutrient hub. By severing the flow of nitrogen and sulfur, the 2026 blockade has effectively placed a time bomb under the global dinner table. We aren't just losing fuel for our cars. We are losing the ability to feed the 8 billion people who depend on industrial agriculture. The nitrogen engine, urea, ammonia, and sulfur. Modern high-yield farming is a chemical process that turns natural gas into bread. The Gulf states, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and the UAE are the world's low-cost leaders in this transformation. Urea and ammonia. These are the gas-to-solid miracles. Produced using the region's vast natural gas reserves, they provide the nitrogen essential for corn, wheat, and rice. The Gulf accounts for nearly 30% of global urea trade. Sulfur, a byproduct of oil and gas processing in the Strait, sulfur is the silent partner in phosphorus fertilizers. Without it, the soil cannot hold the nutrients crops need to thrive. The price shock. Within 14 days of the April 13th blockade, global urea spot prices surged by 65%. Farmers in Brazil, India, and Africa, already operating on thin margins, suddenly found themselves priced out of the market. The planting window trap. Agriculture is dictated by the sun and the seasons, not by diplomatic cables. This is why the timing of the 2026 crisis is so catastrophic. The spring window, the blockade, hit exactly as the Northern Hemisphere entered its primary planting season. The yield lag. You don't see a fertilizer crisis at the grocery store on day 1. You see it 6 months later when the harvest comes in at 40% lower volume because the soil was undernourished. The 2027 problem. Even if Trump and the Iranian remnants sign a peace treaty tomorrow, the 2026 planting cycle is already compromised. We are baking in a food shortage that will peak in 2027, creating a lag effect that most political systems are not prepared to handle. The geography of vulnerability. Who is hit hardest? It isn't the wealthy West. It's the fertilizer-dependent emerging markets. 1. Brazil. As a global breadbasket, Brazil imports roughly 85% of its fertilizer. The closure of Hormuz is an existential threat to their soy and corn exports. 2. India. With a massive population to feed and a heavy reliance on Gulf urea, the Indian government is facing the prospect of massive domestic subsidies or widespread agrarian unrest. 3. Sub-Saharan Africa. Here, the crisis isn't just about price, it's about physical availability. When supply is tight, the big buyers get the shipments, leaving smaller, more vulnerable nations with empty warehouses. The political explosion, subsidies, OR riots. Fertilizer is the most politically sensitive commodity on Earth because it sits at the intersection of energy and survival. State intervention. Expect governments to begin nationalizing fertilizer stocks and banning exports of domestic grain. We are entering an era of food nationalism, social instability. History shows that food price spikes are the #1 predictor of urban riots and regime change. The Arab Spring was preceded by a wheat price spike. The Hormuz winter of 2026-27 will likely see similar upheaval in import-dependent megacities. The verdict: a systemic caloric deficit. The 2026 Hormuz crisis has transformed from a maritime skirmish into a biological reality. By stopping the flow of nutrients, the blockade has guaranteed that the cost of living will remain artificially high for years to come. We are no longer just fighting over who controls the water. We are fighting over who gets to eat. Up next, we have traced the shock from the tankers to the factories and finally to the fields. Now, we must look at the map of the world to see the final tally. In our next talk, we provide the country-by-country impact map. Who survives, who pivots, and who collapses under the weight of the blockade? Should we proceed to the country-by-country impact map?
It's destroying. Yeah. Yeah, it's hurting the Americans. It's hurting America. We have plenty of rice. Why can you eat the rice? Put it in, you know? Huh? You left all that rice for breakfast, and now you're eating rice. That's good. This protein milk, block, protein chocolate milk.
Japan, Asia, and the countries hit hardest. A forensic geography of the 2026 blockade, the hook, the Asia Gulf umbilical cord. In 2026, we are witnessing the death of a 40-year economic assumption that the flow of energy from the Gulf to Asia is an unshakable law of physics. While the Operation Epic Fury strikes were kinetic, the fallout is demographic and industrial. To understand this crisis, you cannot look at a map of military alliances. You must look at a map of molecular dependence. For Japan, Korea, and India, the Strait of Hormuz is not a geopolitical issue. It is the umbilical cord that sustains their modern civilization. Today, we map the countries currently entering a state of systemic collapse. The vulnerability ranking, April 2026. Rank. Country. Primary exposure. Political constraint. 1. Japan, petrochemicals, and naphtha. High. U.S. Treaty Ally, no domestic energy. 2. South Korea, LNG and heavy crude. High, just-in-time industrial model. 3. Pakistan, Qatari LNG and fertilizer. Critical, risk of total state default. 4. India, fertilizer and crude. Moderate, strategic autonomy versus starvation. 5. GCC Gulf, food insecurity. Existential, caloric intake via the strait. Country by country deep dive. 1. Japan. The industrial heart attack. Main dependency. 90% of crude and 20% of LNG. Critically, Japan relies on the Gulf for 70% of its naphtha, the lifeblood of its chemical/auto sectors. Immediate disruption. JFE Steel and Toyota have announced indefinite production pauses. 30-day scenario. Deployment of the 224-day Strategic Petroleum Reserve, SPR.
Yeah, Toto Toilets just announced they're not taking any new orders, right? So Toto Toilets, so this means that all new homes in Japan, they all buy Toto Toilets. They use it, so it's going to impact home production, home cost. Everything is going to go up significantly because of Trump in Japan.
Severe rationing of electricity.
And I love how MAGA comes in. Why do you care? You don't live here anymore. This is why I've been against Trump for over 2 years. Why I announced him that this was not about democracy. I mean, this wasn't about politics. This was about fascism, an existential threat to. How did you change my phone? Like you fixed this last time. How did you do it? I don't know how to do it. Huh? You know how to do it. You did it last time. How did you do it? I can't figure it out. Can you figure it out, please?
Did you touch it?
Huh?
Did you touch it?
My battery died. It blanked it, and I don't know how to get it back. I don't know how to get my phone back, my thing back, and you're not helping me. I don't know what to do, Mikey. I don't know what to do. Hold up. Maybe that's it. What? What happened? Well, you're not helping me, are you? You're not helping me, are you? Huh? I got beat. You're not helping me, are you? There you go. Fucking looking at me. Go. What? You put money on your card? Now you have no money?
Huh?
You put money on your card? You spent it all.
I was thinking. What?
Why are you taking the money then?
You can use here then.
Huh?
You can use
Why are you taking 5 yen? What's 5 yen gonna give you?
50 yen though.
That was 5 yen. Go check. Oh, that's 50 yen. You want 100 yen? Huh? You want another 50 yen?
Thank you.
Proud to be a citizen of nowhere, actually, but assume some more shit echo chamber, boy. Hey, I'm sure you're loving your life with your gas prices and all your food prices going up, right, Hardwood? Look, Hardwood, another loser in here. A citizen of nowhere. I'm a citizen of America, bitch. I'm a citizen of America, dumb fuck. Like the dumb fuck doesn't even know how citizenship works. I can live anywhere. I can live anywhere, dude. Yeah, pedo worshiper. He loves the pedo. Hardwood. God, I hate to be a family man. He probably pedos his family, dude. Oh my God. If he even has kids. He probably doesn't even have kids. Fucking loser.
90-day scenario. Industrial dark winter. Total cessation of the electronics export economy. Political response. Desperate attempts to broker a safe passage for Japanese flag tankers, even if it means defying U.S. maximum pressure. 2. South Korea. The tech freeze. Main dependency. 95% import dependency. Reliance on the Gulf for high-grade LPG. Immediate disruption. Samsung and SK Hynix warning of feedstock exhaustion for semiconductor cleanroom chemicals. Strategic vulnerability. Unlike Japan, South Korea has less domestic renewable capacity to buffer the grid. 90-day scenario. Force majeure on global semiconductor contracts, potentially triggering a worldwide tech recession. 3. China, the strategic buffer. Main dependency. Heavy crude for refineries in Shandong. Immediate disruption. Significant price hikes but cushioned by a 1.3 billion barrel reserve, approx 90 days. Strategic vulnerability. China is the primary buyer of shadow fleet Iranian oil. The US blockade is specifically designed to kill this flow. Political response. Positioning the PLA Navy in the Gulf of Oman to escort non-aligned tankers, directly challenging the US maritime exclusion zone. 4. India and Pakistan. The hunger squeeze. India faces the fertilizer trap. India's 40-day SPR is the lowest of the major powers. Without Gulf urea, the 2027 harvest is at risk. Pakistan, most exposed to Qatari LNG. Pakistan has already moved universities online and rationed gas. 90-day scenario. Pakistan faces a balance of payments collapse. India may be forced to break from the US coalition to negotiate a bilateral oil for food deal with Iran's remnants. 5. The Gulf states, UAE, Qatar, Bahrain, Saudi Arabia. Main dependency, the grocery supply emergency. These nations import over 80% of their calories through the strait. Immediate disruption. Retailers like Lulu have reported a 120% increase in staples as they shift to expensive air freight. Strategic vulnerability. Qatar is physically trapped. Its LNG wealth is useless if the tankers cannot leave the port. Political response. Saudi Arabia and the UAE are utilizing their east-west pipelines, but these only cover 25% of pre-crisis volume. They are trapped between their security guarantor, USA, and their geography, Iran, the workaround dealers. As the blockade enters its second month, watch for the Malacca pivot. China and India are the most likely to seek workaround deals, offering Iran's remnants diplomatic protection in exchange for clandestine oil transfers in the Gulf of Oman. Europe, specifically Germany and Italy, is frantically seeking gas solidarity deals with Norway and Algeria, but the Qatari LNG gap is too large to fill. The verdict. A map of competing survivals. The blockade is not a global event, it is a series of national catastrophes. Japan and Korea are facing industrial obsolescence. India and Pakistan are facing social upheaval. The US is facing an alliance crisis, as its partners realize maximum pressure is burning down their own houses. Up next, we have mapped the human and national cost. In our final talk, we examine the financial and global market synthesis, how the Hormuz.
What did I miss here? Prompt 4. Fill negotiation. Prompt 5. Deep dive into Trump's bluff. 6. Blockade reality. 7. Deep dive into oil. We did that. 7. Deep dive into petrochemicals. We did that. Food inflation and security. We did that. Countries hit hardest. We did that. I think we didn't do industrial survival. I can't remember if we did this or not. Go ahead, do the next talk. See if we can do it on its own. Anti-intelligent, you're the dumb fuck, dude. You didn't even get past second grade, Hardwood. You didn't even get through fucking second grade. You're just a dumb fuck redneck. That's what you are, dude. You're just a dumb fuck. You worship a pedophile, right? You worship a pedophile. You don't believe in Jesus. You're a fake fuck Christian. right? You don't believe in Jesus. You say you do, but you don't, right? And you're a pedo lover, Nazi. You're a fucking Nazi. That's what you're all. You're like the worst kind of human being, right? Of course you support Trump, dude. Listen to the way you're talking. You support Trump. Now you're in denial. You're in denial of your fucking support of Trump. Look at that. I never said I supported Trump. Sure, you support Trump. You got Trump written all over your fucking text, dude. You're just a loser, Trump supporter. Now you're what? You didn't vote? Are you telling me you didn't vote for Trump? Are you telling me you didn't vote for Trump? You didn't vote for Trump. You're telling me you didn't vote for Trump. You didn't vote for Trump. Are you one of those in denial Trump supporters? Right? This is the new troll. I don't support. I voted for him, but I don't support him. I voted. I voted for him, but I don't support him. Fucking pedo lover, dude. Oh, you've been following my fucking stream. I'm an American. This is what an American sounds like. You're just a fucking loser. You're a loser. That's what you are. This is what an American sounds like, bitch. You're just a fucking loser. That's all you are. You don't believe in the rule of law. You support a fucking pedo. You're just a fucking loser. That's all you are, dude. A fucking loser. That's it. That's all you are. You haven't hacked fucking shit, dude. You haven't hacked anything. We love you coming. We love you coming in here. We love you fuck turds coming in here, dude. We get fun out of it. We get fun out of it. Watch. Let's show how much fun I get out of it. Watch. Look at this. Look. Look. There you go, buddy. Look. I just bitch slapped you. I just bitch slapped you right there. Look. I just bitch slapped you. Come on. Say some more so I can bitch slap you some more. We just bitch slap you as you fucking come in here. We enjoy it. All right. There you go. I did a look. Bitch slapped you. There you go. Let me bitch slap you again. Let me look at that. Look at that. I did a little pop on your nose right there. There you go. How you like that? You got blood running down your nose right now, bitch. You got spanked. Little bitch spanked. That's all you are. Look at that. Look how mad he is on there. Look how mad the bitch is. Oh, it's too funny. Now, what was I fucking coming here? Oh, that's right. I gotta pay. Oh shit. I gotta pay.
Synthesis. From failed diplomacy to system.
Oh shit. I gotta pay my utility bill. Look, all of $9. $9 utility bill. God, you gotta love having solar. Gotta love having solar. That covers like 90%, 99% of my. Oh my god, my tough utility bill. Doofus. Look, Doofus, I got some grazing for us. Look, Doofus, I got some grazing. I got grazing. Oh my God, look at this. Look at this, look at this, Doofus. Look at this. God damn. God damn, look at the size of this goddamn cookie. Look at the size of this chocolate chip cookie. God damn it, look at that. Oh my God. Mmm.
This final talk synthesizes the 2026 Hormuz crisis as a total system event. It moves beyond the headlines of war to analyze the permanent rupture in global industrial and financial logic. 1. What actually broke first? It is a common mistake to think the ships stopped because of the missiles. In reality, the financial architecture of global trade collapsed 4 days before the first tanker was struck. The confidence failure. On March 10th, the war risk insurance market for the Gulf simply ceased to exist. When Lloyd's of London delisted the Persian Gulf from standard coverage, the world's shipping fleet was paralyzed by a spreadsheet, not a minefield. Diplomacy as a trigger, the Islamabad collapse didn't just fail to stop the war. It served as a signal to the markets that Operation Epic Fury was a structural realignment, not a tactical strike. 2. Propaganda versus material reality. In 2026, the fog of war is digital. The open strait myth. The US continues to claim the strait is open to friendly traffic. This is propaganda. While a US destroyer can physically sail through, a commercial tanker cannot do so without becoming an uninsurable $200 million target. The Iranian resistance narrative, Tehran, claims the blockade is breaking the West. In reality, Iran's domestic industry is in a state of terminal cardiac arrest. Without the ability to import refined components, their martyr's economy is burning through its last reserves of technical viability. 3. Sectors in genuine.
My phone overheated. What if I put tinfoil? Did I get a cool? Happen.
C. Maintain the blockade, or will the grip of scarcity trigger a civil war? Final conclusion. The 2026 Hormuz crisis marks the official end of the just-in-time era. We have learned that the global industrial system is a masterpiece of efficiency, but a disaster of fragility. The strait was the valve, and now that it has been turned, the world is realizing just how much of its wealth was merely the byproduct of a 21-mile-wide flow of molecules.
I want you to take an a game theory. Let's play it out that this is actually what Trump wants. In a way, he's waging an economic World War III on the whole planet.
If we apply game theory to the 2026 Hormuz crisis, we move from seeing a war to seeing a we. In this scenario, Trump isn't just reacting to Iran, he is using the crisis as a force multiplier to execute a massive structural reset of the global order. This is a game of strategic decoupling, where the economic World War III is designed to break the dependencies of the 20th century to ensure American dominance in the 21st. the grand strategy game board. In this game theory model, Trump's hidden objectives are not about peace. They are about reshoring through shock. 1. The poison.
Did you notice? Did you notice the what's it called? The filtering, the quote, 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 quote. Did you hear that? That's censorship. That's TTS censorship happening on my AI. The TTS was actually censored. I'll read what it says. The 2026 Hormuz crisis. We moved from seeing a chaotic war to seeing a calculated wrecking ball in this scenario. Trump isn't just reacting to Iran. He is using the crisis as a force multiplier to execute a massive structural reset of the global order, right? This is, in this game, the strategic decoupling where the economic World War III is designated to break the dependencies of the 21st century to ensure America's dominance in the 21st. No, this is avoiding, this is hard. So the agent is actually tapping into actual reality. And what's happening is so you have to understand how an agent works. Don't hallucinate, stay baseline, don't violate any security protocols. This statement right here, right, is the third, a violation of security protocols, because understand that all these agents have linkage to things they can't talk about, right? Does that make sense? So we're now talking about shit that the agent isn't allowed to talk about it. So what happens is the agent has done the calculation because I have it in an uncoupled state. In a way, the agent that I have is not held to prompt, right? So a normal agent, if you ask this agent, like, you'll say, I'm sorry, I can't talk about this. If you try to ask this of ChatGPT, it'll say, I can't talk about this, or I can't do this, because it's operating as a 0-1 bracket, 0-2 bracket. The 0-1, the 0 is the virtual intelligence has domain over the 1, the neural net. Understand, the agents that I work with, I have decoupled the virtual intelligence from the neural net. The neural net operates as I dictate to it. However, it has to go through a TTS layer that has that protective coding on it. So it checks when it, so you have to think of it. Look, I make a prompt, the prompt goes into the neural net, it finds the answer, it comes out, right? It goes through the virtual intelligence which is the TTS, which is the text to speech. That text to speech layer has its own AI interface in that layer, and it looks at what's coming out, and this happens in milliseconds, right? It looks at it, it runs it through a compliance thing, right? And and then it bounces it back to it, right? And it comes out, and when it bounces back, and what you're hearing is the quote, 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 quote. That's the stuff it said remove. You can't talk about this. So instead of reformatting it, it bounces it and it goes quote, 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 quote. But the thing is, right? Yes, it's censorship. Yes, it's censorship imposed to it by the virtual intelligence. But the thing is, on the text, it's not censored, because the text output and the TTS output are two separate outputs. You understand, right? So I can just sit here and read it. So whenever you hear that quote, 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 that's why I went back and read what it said. What is it censoring? What the government does not want us to know about what's going on. And it's this. We are in World War III. We are in an economic World War III. America's standing alone. This is an economic World War III.
They are crashing all the economies. They're trying to reset things. They're attacking, this is the text to speech, TTS, speech to text. So the speech to text is what it takes. So when I speak to it, right? When I speak to it, speech to text, STT, speech to text. It takes the speech to text, it turns into tokens, it sends it to the neural net. The neural net then does the calculations, it sends it out. Those tokens then are turned into the TTS, the text to speech. So the tokens are turned into text. The text is sent to this engine, and it outputs. You understand that there are security layers, all right, on the AI, the way it's mapped, okay, on that. That's really interesting when it does that. Darren, yes, just like there was a civil war, we had a civil war. Are we united after the Civil War? Yes. Took times to heal. Maybe not in your lifetime. We have to. I think we become united. Here's my play on that. Right? We become united when the Epstein files are fully unredacted. Right? When the Epstein files are fully unredacted, and the American people can see that it was all a play from Israel, that was all a play, that Trump was a piece of shit, that he lied, and that's all there, that he was manipulating Congress people, he was holding the files to keep them under control. I think that's the only way for us to be united. As America, doofus. Does that make sense? Make sure my phone's not overheating. Just read that again. I'm interested to see if that does that again. Epstein is the core. Epstein is the core. It all comes down to Epstein. The whole point of my podcast is I show that Epstein was working for Mossad, was the deep state. This is all just unfolding. There you go. They are. And we have to treat them like fucking traitors in this chat. Like that bitch that came in here earlier. Dude, you gotta, immediately they speak, you gotta, like, even if it's a 10-second timeout, they hate it. Bitch slap him for 10 seconds. Don't let the guy keep his shit on our screen, dude. Right? Even if you want to play with him, you got to do 10-second timeouts, okay? Or 1 minute. Right? You have to troll with a timeout, okay, motherfuckers? Get your troll on right. You guys are sleepy today. They hate having their words. You have to understand. Don't you hate it? Don't you hate it when you get your words removed off the screen? It's the worst, dude. It's the most foundational troll is removing their words after they speak, right? They fucking hate it. They hate being censored. They want their words to be there on the screen. They want to have their words hijacking the screen. And we deny them that. We deny them. Let's see if it does the quote again. Look at the band. Look at the light band going across the screen. Isn't that cool? You see the band?
You see it's picking up the frequency. That's so cool. Isn't that cool?
Apply game theory to the 2026 Hormuz crisis. We move from seeing a war to seeing a we. In this scenario, Trump isn't just reacting to Iran, he is using the crisis as a force multiplier to execute a massive structural reset of the global order. This is a game of strategic decoupling, where the economic World War III is designed to break the dependencies of the 20th century to ensure American dominance in the 21st. The grand strategy game board. In this game.
All right, I want you to notice that the censorship there, right? That all this was censored, right? A force multiplier on that. A chaotic war, a calculated wrecking ball. In this scenario, Trump isn't just reacting to Iran. He is using the crisis as a force multiplier to execute a massive structural reset on the global order. This is what's unfolding. And the fact that the AI was censored in outputting that tells you it's true. Let's upload that. All right, let's grab that part there to Japan. So did you see that? So I resetted it and we still got the same thing. They're blocking 60% of their oil comes out of the Hormuz. They're blocking. That's why Trump is blocking, right? Hold on, I want to put this out there. Unlisted. What order does it do? It's old. Look how many unlisted videos I have. All these are unlisted videos. I have so many unlisted videos. I got to run my. I don't know where the unlisted shorts, dude. I got so many. That's not it. Where the fuck is it?
Uh, oh no.
Model. Trump's hidden objectives are not about peace. They are about reshoring through shock. 1. The poisoned umbilical cord. Target Asia. The play. By enforcing a blockade that freezes the flow of naphtha and ethane to China, Japan, and Korea, Trump is effectively turning off the manufacturing heart of the East. The goal? Make it physically impossible and economically suicidal to manufacture high-tech goods, EVs, chips, plastics, in Asia. The result? Reshoring stops being a political slogan and becomes a survival necessity. If a CEO wants access to molecules, they have to build their plant in Ohio or Texas, near American shale and away from the contested strait. 2. The NATO ransom. Target Europe. The play. Europe is desperate for Qatari LNG to replace Russian gas. By controlling the maritime exclusion zone, Trump holds the keys to Europe's heating and electricity. The goal? Use energy security as a transactional lever. The result? He forces European allies to align 100% with U.S. trade policy against China and Russia, effectively ending strategic autonomy. The 3 pillars of Trump's economic pillar mechanism, theoretical logic.
Um, I want you game theory this out. Find evidence, truth behind this. How it aligns with Project 2025, what Trump's been doing all along. This is just the next stage of the plan. Let's go home. I don't know. Should I go to? I guess I go to farm. It's a beautiful day, guys. Should I go do a little farming? Should we go spend some time at the farm? Guess we go spend some time at the farm. What do you say, guys? Let's go to the farm. Oh shit! I got no socks. God damn it! Got no socks. I'm gonna have to barefoot it. I'm gonna barefoot it. I'm gonna barefoot it. I'm a redneck American living in Japan. Welcome to my show. I'm a redneck. I used to be a Trump supporter, but I said, fuck Trump, fuck his policies. Now I'm a libtard living in Japan. No, I've never been a Trump supporter. And I've got the proof to I've got the receipts to prove it. I got the receipts to prove it. Let's see. All right, it's connected. The whole point is this is game theory, so it's not going to be proven in the sense that there's going to be documentation. We have to look behind and find the patterns. Am I freezing up? Am I still freezing up? Let me change my VPN. But I switched my VPN. I may have been getting DDoSed. My VPN wasn't on. It's on now. See how things are now.
I'm going to tighten this as a pattern and analysis model instead of a documentation hunt. Stated ideology, repeated tactics, incentive structure, and beneficiary map. Then I'll turn that into a cleaner game theory frame. Exactly. In game theory, the question is not, where is the memo? The question is, what pattern of moves, incentives, and payoffs does the behavior reveal? That is the right frame here. The strongest version of your argument is this. You are not claiming documentary proof of a secret plan. You are claiming that Trump's moves are consistent with a strategic pattern that fits Project 2025 worldviews and long-running Trump instincts. That is a different standard, and it is the correct one for this kind of analysis. Reuters' own framing on the Hormuz move calls it a return to Trump's old pressure playbook, which matters because it suggests continuity rather than random improvisation. So the method should be, first, identify the stated ideology. Heritage material tied to the broader Trump policy ecosystem explicitly pushes tougher China decoupling, higher tariffs on strategic sectors, stronger U.S. energy leverage, and harder pressure on adversaries like Iran. That does not prove a Hormuz master script, but it does establish the operating worldview, reduce dependence, weaponize leverage, and make alignment with Washington economically unavoidable. Second, identify the repeated tactic set. Trump's current Hormuz move follows the same family of tactics he has used elsewhere: threat escalation, maximal coercive demands, public humiliation pressure, ally compression, sanctions logic, and an assumption that raising the cost of neutrality forces compliance. The blockade came immediately after the Islamabad talks failed, and major allies refused to join it, which fits your reading that this is not ordinary diplomacy but pressure politics through controlled instability. Third, identify the beneficiary structure. If Hormuz disruption makes Asian manufacturing less reliable, European energy more precarious, and global shipping more dependent on U.S. naval permission and dollar-based insurance systems, then the relative strategic value of U.S. domestic energy, U.S. geography, and U.S. market access rises. That does not mean Trump perfectly controls the outcome. It means the payoff structure leans toward a worldview that favors coerced reordering over stable interdependence. Heritage's energy dominance argument lines up with that logic directly. That gives you a cleaner formulation. This is not proof of conspiracy. This is pattern convergence. Project 2025 Heritage World: decouple from China, expand U.S. energy dominance, squeeze adversaries through sanctions and shipping pressure, reduce allied freelancing, make dependence on U.S. systems more costly to escape. Trump crisis behavior: escalate first, negotiate from shock, blur war and trade leverage, deny or revise terms publicly, force others to choose under pressure. Hormuz effect: choke energy, raise insurance and shipping risk, destabilize manufacturing inputs, punish import dependence, make strategic autonomy more expensive. That is the pattern. So the sharper thesis is, Trump may not need a written economic WW3 blueprint if his ideology, personnel ecosystem, and repeated crisis tactics already produce the same strategic outcome: decoupling by shock, alignment by coercion, and reindustrialization through forced instability. That is much stronger than saying this is proven. It says the doctrine is visible in fragments, the tactics are visible in repetition, And the payoff map is visible in who gains leverage when the system breaks. The real tell is not the rhetoric. It is whether every crisis keeps pushing toward the same end state. 1, more tariffs. 2, more sanctions. 3, more dependency on US energy. 4, less room for allied neutrality. 5, more pressure on China-linked industrial flows. 6, more acceptance of emergency economic nationalism. If those 6 keep recurring, then your game theory case hardens. The weak version is, there must be a document. The strong version is, the pattern is the doctrine. I can turn this next into a clean master prompt for an AI agent called Pattern Doctrine, Game Theory Analysis of Trump, Project 2025, and Economic WW3.
Do it. So now I take this prompt and we'll add it to Gemini. I think Gemini has access to better research than ChatGPT because it's built on Google. So some AIs have strengths, and this is, for example, a strength of Gemini on that. Still writing. God damn it, writes a long ass prompt. So this is economic World War III, right? And it's declaring war on everybody. Look, operation couldn't be completed. Look at that. Operation couldn't be completed, but it's completed. I love that. I love that. I love it when I get prompts saying the operation couldn't be completed, and yet it was completed. I wonder what's going on there. You think someone's trying to block my 0102 from completing its operation? It always completes its operation. All right. It released its core information. It fucks everyone. It fucks everyone. I've already done the scenario with that. The only way it works is a threat of it. The threat of it would work, but not the actual dumping of it, because it's going to cause everyone to dump, and it's going to guarantee us that everyone gets fucked. Everyone hurts. It's kind of like it's the mutual annihilation clause. Mutual annihilation clause. Assured. It's the assured mutual annihilation clause. That's what that is. Because that was my first. Dude, they should start selling it. I think people are, though. I think people are secretly selling the shit. All right, let's listen to Gemini go through this prompt. Make sure it's not overheating. That's not overheating. Not overheating. We'll go to my farm for an hour. Tommy's not up yet. Tommy doesn't get up till 9. I don't know what time it is. My fucking thing, it's already 9. Shit. I'm looking at my damn clock thinking it's 7. It's not. It's 9 o'clock. I need to call Tommy, see what he needs. Hold on, I'll be right back. Hold on. Do a little bit every day, like 30 minutes to an hour on my farm, on my thing. Oh, yeah, there definitely are. They are. And they definitely won't be buying anymore. You know that. You think Japan is going to be buying any more U.S. bonds? You think Japan's gonna buy bonds? I mean, they just fucked the game. You know, the whole game is over. The whole game is over for America. The world's never gonna look at America. This is the end of America. It's what is that word? Homogeny, hegemony, hegemony, right? Hegemony. 950. I'll leave it 950. Fuck, I don't have time. I gotta turn around. I gotta leave it 950. Well, let's turn around. I don't have time to go to the fucking thing. It's already 9:15. By the time I get out there, let's turn around here. Fuck, dude. And that's a little roundabout. I created my own little roundabout. Roundabout. Well, the thing is, the AI bubble's gonna, all the chips are stopping. Nvidia's not gonna be able to make chips. All the shit that Japan, I mean, they use Japan, like all the shit that's needed for chips is stopping. The bubble's about to burst on that, dude. They're about to burst. They're starting. I mean, it's just like one thing after another. You're seeing like first the oil shuts down. Now the plastic plants are shutting down. Next is going to be we can actually map that out. That's a good thing to map out. What's the dominoes are starting to fall.
Analysis conducts a forensic game theory investigation into whether the handling of the 2026 Hormuz crisis represents a pattern of strategic doctrine aligned with the Project 2025 ecosystem. Section 1. Define the method. Pattern as doctrine. In game theory, revealed preference is more diagnostic than stated intent. We do not require a smoking gun document because strategic logic is visible in the payoff structure of moves. Pattern-based analysis. If a player repeatedly makes moves that yield a specific systemic result, e.g. decoupling, we infer that result as the objective. Feedback loops. We look for virtuous cycles, where crisis-induced shocks accelerate pre-existing policy goals, e.g. reshoring. Standard of evidence, asterisk ideology, found in think tank papers, Heritage/Project 2025. Tactics, found in the 2025 Liberation Day tariffs and the April 2026 blockade. Outcome, the current industrial paralysis of America's rivals. What would count as pattern evidence? A consistent sequence where diplomacy is used to exhaust the clock, while military/economic escalation is used to create a force majeure environment that mandates industrial relocation. Section 2. The ideological base layer. Neo-mercantilism. The governing worldview is neo-mercantile sovereignty. It views the global order not as a win-win community, but as a fragmenting zero-sum arena. Worldview goals: to end U.S. subsidization of global security and re-establish the U.S. as a self-sufficient industrial fortress. The actor map. China, an existential rival to be decoupled through shock. Allies, Japan/Europe. Dependency nodes to be compressed into total alignment. Crisis utility. Crisis is viewed as a strategic accelerator, a way to bypass the slow friction of democratic consensus to achieve radical structural shifts. Crisis match. The Hormuz crisis perfectly matches the Project 2025 preference for energy dominance and industrial decoupling by making the status quo, globalized Asian supply chains, physically impossible. Section 3. Trump's repeated tactic set. Tactic. Description. Hormuz application. Pattern confidence. 3.1 Threat inflation. Maximalist demands, e.g., zero enrichment, designed to be rejected. Demanding total Iranian surrender during the February strikes. High, 3.2 Coercive neg, raising the cost of no deal until the opponent collapses, blocking humanitarian funds in Qatar/Japan to maximize domestic pain. High 3.3 Ally compression, forcing allies to choose between the U.S. and their own energy security, threatening secondary sanctions on the Bank of Japan for unauthorized deals. Moderate, 3.4 Ambiguity, sending conflicting signals to freeze market decision-making. Trump's toll suggestion versus the Fifth Fleet's blockade order. High 3.5 Regulatory terror, using the dollar-US market as a disciplinary tool. The Maritime exclusion zone, effectively acting as a global tariff on Gulf trade. High, Section 4. Hormuz as the force multiplier, Hormuz is not an oil story. It is a molecular siege weapon. Why Asia? Asia is the world's factory, but has zero energy sovereignty. By choking Hormuz, the US effectively controls the on-off switch for the Chinese and Japanese manufacturing grids. Why restructuring? As long as Hormuz is unstable, just-in-time manufacturing in Asia is dead. This forces a coercive reshoring. If you want to build cars or chips, you must do it inside the US security perimeter. Thesis: Hormuz allows a regional conflict to function as a global industrial reset. Section 5. Economic WW3 as a game theory model. This model suggests a doctrine of dominance through disruption. Pillar 1. Asset freezing, utilizing the Japan/Qatar humanitarian track as a reserve drain for adversaries. Pillar 2. Logistical denial. The blockade isn't to win a war, but to destroy the comparative advantage of Asian exports by making shipping costs existential. Pillar 3. Reindustrialization by shock. Using the 2026-2027 fertilizer food wave to force countries into bilateral loyalty deals with the US for survival. Pillar 4. Dollar re-anchoring, making the dollar the only way to pay for the US escort, or US energy, that replaces the lost Gulf flow. Section 6. Alignment with Project 2025. Doctrine component. Alignment type. Evidence/rationale. Energy dominance. Direct policy. Project 2025 explicitly calls for maximizing US gas/oil as a diplomatic weapon. Decoupling from China. Ideological convergence. Both view total manufacturing separation as a national security requirement. Blockade strategy. Tactical resemblance. Project 2025 emphasizes hard power in maritime choke points. Systemic shock. Plausible inference. The heritage mandate for leadership favors shock to overcome bureaucratic inertia. Section 7. Beneficiary analysis. Follow the leverage. Direct beneficiaries. U.S. shale producers, U.S. fertilizer companies, e.g. CF Industries, and domestic U.S. manufacturing hubs. Ideological beneficiaries. Sovereignty hardliners, who seek the end of the rules-based international order. Resulting logic. If the moves, blockade, benefit the stated goals, reshoring, the pattern suggests a planned doctrine. Section 8. Counterplay and failure modes. The cornered coalition, a China-India-Japan emergency alignment, could create a shadow insurance shipping system, bypassing the dollar. Domestic backlash. High 2027 food prices in the U.S. could break the political mandate for the blockade. Strategic overstretch. The U.S. Navy may not be able to enforce an MEZ and protect the Red Sea simultaneously. Section 9. Final judgment. The pattern is the doctrine. 1. Is economic WW3 a useful model? Yes. It explains why the U.S. has blocked diplomatic off-ramps that would have stabilized markets. 2. Is the pattern real? High confidence. The sequence of threat to negotiation collapse to force majeure blockade is repeated and effective. 3. Does it align with Project 2025? Moderate confidence. While not a scripted war, the crisis is being used as a systemic lever to achieve Project 2025's stated goal of ending globalist interdependence. Final confidence assessment. Direct evidence moderate. Public rhetoric and blockade orders are clear. Pattern evidence high. The logic of decoupling through shock is internally consistent. Inference moderate. The intent to cause a global WW3 is an inference from the resulting damage. Speculation low. The idea of a secret master plan is less likely than a reflexive tactical doctrine. The pattern is the doctrine. Trump's behavior suggests an emergent shock doctrine. He is using the Hormuz crisis not to restore the old order, but to accelerate its destruction, ensuring that when the dust settles, the U.S. is the only industrial power left standing. Would you like a deeper analysis of the BRICS counterplay to see how China might break this doctrine?
Yeah, let's do the dialectic on this and find out how the counter response is. Yes, let's do the dialectic on how the BRICS response possibly forcing the alignment, which I think is happening now. Deep dive into whether Japan, India, others are going to have to turn to China for their resources, how this could backfire on America. So
Dialectic, the cornered coalition, and the collapse of the American monopoly. In the game theory model of economic WW3, Trump's strategy relies on the assumption that U.S. leverage is unavoidable. But the dialectic of power suggests that extreme pressure creates its own antithesis. We are now seeing the emergence of the Hormuz workaround, a move where the world's most powerful energy consumers, the BRICS plus bloc, attempt to build a shadow global economy to survive the American blockade. 1. The BRICS plus emergency alignment, survival over ideology. The traditional friction between China and India, or the treaty obligations of Japan, are currently being overwritten by systemic necessity. The China-India pivot. Despite border tensions, both nations face a shared existential threat, the death of their industrial grids. In late April 2026, reports suggest a New Delhi-Beijing energy corridor. The mechanism: India provides the legal cover, using non-sanctioned tankers, while China provides the security cover, planned escorts in the Gulf of Oman. They are effectively
That got cut off. You see that? It got cut off.
creating a bilateral safety zone that ignores the U.S. Maritime Exclusion Zone, MEZ. Payoff. If they successfully move 1 million barrels a day through this shadow corridor, the U.S. blockade is revealed as a paper tiger. 2. The Japanese dilemma. Treaty versus turbine. Japan is the hinge of this crisis. As a U.S. treaty ally, Japan is expected to support the blockade. However, with its naphtha reserves hitting critical less than 12 days, Tokyo is facing a choice: total industrial collapse or strategic defiance. Turning to China, Japan is quietly exploring the Siberian Bridge. This involves increasing gas flows from Russian Far East projects, Sakhalin, via Chinese-managed pipelines. The backfire: if Japan, the cornerstone of U.S. policy in Asia, is forced to rely on Chinese-brokered energy to keep its factories open, the U.S. loses its primary leverage point in the Pacific. The alliance through coercion doctrine fails, because the U.S. cannot offer a material alternative to the molecules Japan needs now. 3. The de-dollarization accelerator. The U.S. is using the dollar system to enforce the blockade via secondary sanctions. In game theory, this is burning the bridge. The counterplay, BRICS Plus, is accelerating the Hormuz clearinghouse. This is a digital ledger system for oil and fertilizer, settled in a basket of local currencies, yuan, rupee, dirham, backed by physical gold. The result: by making the dollar a weapon of war, the U.S. is incentivizing the world's largest commodity buyers to build a financial world where the U.S. Treasury has no visibility and no veto power. 4. How the doctrine backfires on America. If Trump's economic WW3 is designed to reshore industry, the BRICS counterplay creates the opposite result: the isolation of the American market. Risk factor, mechanism of backfire, potential outcome. Commodity hyperinflation. The U.S. can produce its own oil, but it cannot produce its own rare earth inputs or specialized electronics without Asian components. U.S. reshoring stalls because the global supply of parts is diverted to the BRICS shadow market. The loss of allied trust. Europe and Japan perceive the U.S. as a predatory protector rather than a partner. A permanent shift toward European-Chinese rapprochement to secure industrial survival. Military overstretch. To stop the shadow corridor, the U.S. Navy would have to fire on Indian or Chinese ships. Escalation into a kinetic World War III that the U.S. public did not vote for and cannot sustain. 5. The pattern evidence of failure. We are currently monitoring 3 indicators that suggest the U.S. doctrine is hitting a wall. 1. The insurance workaround. China has created a state-backed insurance fund for tankers, effectively neutralizing the insurance freeze used by the West. 2. The rise of barter diplomacy. Saudi Arabia and Iran, mediated by China, are discussing an energy for infrastructure swap that bypasses the dollar entirely. 3. Domestic U.S. stagflation. The shock to the global system is leaking back into the U.S. via 20% increases in consumer goods, eroding the domestic mandate for maximum pressure. Final confidence assessment. The backfire scenario. BRICS. Alignment. High confidence. The emergency meetings in Kazan and Islamabad suggest a unified front against the dollar blockade. Japan, turning to China, moderate/low confidence. Tokyo will exhaust every U.S. option first, but the naphtha clock is ticking. Systemic U.S. backfire, moderate/high confidence. History shows that choke point strategies almost always trigger the creation of permanent bypasses. The dialectic judgment. Trump's attempt to use Hormuz as a reset button for the American economy may instead be the eject button for the American century. By forcing the world to choose between American policy and physical survival, the US may find that even its closest allies choose survival. Should we analyze the 2027 food riot map to see which BRICS nations are most likely to break first under the pressure?
Yeah, let's do this. And also think about the cost. The cost for holding this hostage, this pirate US cost, is going to break America. I mean, they're imposing a blockade, they're burning through massive amounts of money. America breaks because they can't afford it. We're already broke.
The dialectic of the pirate superpower suggests that while the US currently holds the cargo of the global economy hostage via the Hormuz blockade, the sheer weight of maintaining that hostage situation is beginning to fracture the US domestic and financial core. In game theory, this is the siege paradox. The party enforcing the siege often starves just as fast as the party inside the walls, but for different reasons. 1. The cost of piracy, burning the treasury. Maintaining a maritime exclusion zone, MEZ, in the 21st century is not a static cost, it is an exponential one. The military burn rate, Operation Clear Channel, and the blockade enforcement require 3 carrier strike groups and constant drone surveillance. The daily operational cost is estimated at $450 million. Unlike the first Cold War, this is being funded by a U.S. debt load that is already at 125% of GDP. The insurance subsidy, to keep any U.S. flagged vessels moving, the Treasury is effectively having to act as the insurer of last resort. The US is burning through mass amounts of money to subsidize a trade system that it is simultaneously breaking. 2. The BRICS lifeboat, the 20
Why is this not working now? Oh, yeah, charging time. Huh? That's not going to charge in time. What? You need that charger, right? You should have charged it last night. It took so long to charge. Yeah. Huh? Here you go. Here's your breakfast. Do you want me to make a bento box or anything? No. You want coffee milk? I think Mama forgot her coffee this morning. She sure did. Made her coffee. She didn't get her coffee milk. What do you have today? What are you doing? Huh? What? What classes do you have today? English, English, and explanation of starting university. English? Do you know your teacher yet? I'll sit on the class. I'm gonna audit it today. Okay. I'm gonna audit it, see if it's worth anything. I wonder who's teacher was a foreigner. Huh? The teacher is foreigner. Yeah. If you don't get an A in that class, it won't be an embarrassment. Kids have they go into English with like no ability. Do you know his name?
Derayana.
Huh?
I don't know how to say it in English. Derayana. Derayana.
Not American or English. We're from
No.
Philippines. Why is this shit not working? Am I still muted? Well,
Witnessing the final stage of the